Oh, ho, 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 baby. It's Clark the Shark. You're on the Clark the Shark show, wherever you are. You're on the most amazing, the greatest reviewer on YouTube. You know what? Strike that from the record. The greatest reviewer of rock albums of all time. Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255. Because not only did I grow up and live these albums, oh, I more than lived them. I am them. They are me. Clark the Shark. Coming to you on YouTube or Rumble or Vimeo. Wherever the fuck I'm coming from, motherfucker. At 1-800-449-8255. I'm coming to you from the golden EIB Sharkraphone. It's Little Sharky's underground garage. It's better than Little Steven. It's Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255. The Wolfman Jack on crack, and I'm coming to you, bringing to you Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, 1966. Freak Out! This is Paul McCartney's favorite album. Yeah, but, don't listen to Paul McCartney. You're going to listen to Clark the Shark today at 1-800-449-8255, the Wolfman Jack on crack. And I'm telling you that Frank Zappa was more than a genius. And I wish Frank Zappa wasn't buried in an unmarked grave out there in Westwood or wherever he is, man. I want to go put a marker on Frank Zappa. I don't care what Dweezil or Moon Unit or his estate thinks. I love Frank Zappa, and he needs a gravestone, man. He needs a marker at that cemetery. On the Clark the Shark show at 1-800-449-8255. But I'm going to talk about his debut album in 1966. And this album is so far ahead of its time. I mean, it makes the Beatles' Revolver and the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds look like nothing. I'm not even kidding you, man. This guy is in 1973 already here. Maybe 1975 or 1976. He's 10 years ahead of his time in 1966. On this album, Freak Out, man. This guy right here, this incredible guy, and these incredible mothers of invention, all of them. I don't know what to say, man, about this phenomenal album that I love, I grew up with. Should all be 5 stars, and it's pretty close, man. Shouldn't get no 4 stars. It should get 5 stars. We're talking about the debut Frank Zappa album, basically. And of course, he'd get much better, but I think he was trying to recreate this album. I think the Who, Tommy, tried to recreate this album. And I think all the progressive bands in the 70s, they all wanted to recreate Frank Zappa Freak Out. Rush, everybody, Styx, everybody, Yes, ELP, Eloy, Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down, everybody, Cheech and Chong, everyone who ever wanted to be funny, everybody, man, they wanted to be Frank Zappa, or progressive, or, oh man, Hungry Freak's Daddy, the very first song that greets you on side 1 of this incredible double album. And I mean, who does a double album on their first album, man? Who does that? It could only be the fabulous, amazing, great, just totally fucking twisted Frank Zappa. Genius, eccentric, beyond genius. Hungry Freak's Daddy, amazing. And of course, I Ain't Got No Heart. Ain't got no heart. I ain't got no heart to give away. Do. The song's just so dark and crazy. It's before Cream, you guys. Cream and Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce, they ripped off this album. I hate to say it, man. Everyone ripped off this album, including me, yours truly, Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255. I had to rip off Frank Zappa. We all did. Because who are the brain police? Amazing. And then he gets into like this 50s, like, go cry on somebody else's shoulder. And Motherly Love almost sounds like the Jefferson Airplane, or it could go right on the radio. You know, for how weird this album is and how strange it is, it's really commercial. It's really great, man. It's funnier than Cheech and Chong. It's better. You know, and How Could I Be Such a Fool is, you know, how can I be such a fool? And then he redoes that song in 1968, like in the 50s. It's killer, the 50s version. But I love side 2 and Wowie Zowie and all these songs, man. They're just so silly, like, anyway, the wind. I love all of it, man. Side 2 is just amazing on this. You didn't try to call me. And at the end, he's like some like Mexican guy. Like, I was doing my car upholstery. You could tell where Cheech and Chong got their stuff. It was from this album, man. And I'm Not Satisfied. Great, great. You probably wondered why I'm here. Awesome. Trouble Every Day is just way ahead of its time. Where he's talking about like race relations, like almost like White Black Thing by Clark the Shark from 1991. Well, let me tell you, Frank Zappa's way ahead of his time, man. And then Help, I'm a Rock is just like a little rock opera trilogy. It's just killer, man. It's so weird and like it's beyond psychedelic. It's funny psychedelic. But Frank didn't do no drugs. He didn't drop acid. He didn't smoke weed. Frank was a drug. You know, Help, I'm a Rock. And then I'm bummed out about side 4 because Frank said, you know, with Monster Magnet, he wanted to do all these more overdubs, and the song is just so great, but, you know, it's just the longest song, you know. It seems like it's a 30-minute song. It's 12 minutes, but, and I'm bummed out, man. I want to hear all the overdubs. I hope they exist on the tape at Frank's vault at his house in Laurel Canyon, man. Because I want to hear the return of the Son of Monster Magnet. I want to hear all those overdubs that Frank was talking about. That's just killer, man. Just weird psychedelic garage grunge guitars. But it's better than psychedelia. This album isn't psychedelia. This album's too weird, man. It's like weird Cheech and Chong, funny humor, 1950s psychedelia. Funnier, man. I would also love to have seen Frank go more commercial. I love the song Motherly Love. It could be off the first Jefferson Airplane album with that other chick, but it could be off the second Airplane album with Grace Slick and Marty Ballin. But better, way better. Frank's way better than everyone. I love Motherly Love. That song could be a hit. It is a hit to me. Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255. And I Ain't Got No Heart is just so awesome, man. There ain't no angels up above. They ain't got no heart today. Do. 'Cause I ain't got no do. With just those drums, the timpani drums. It's so awesome, man. This whole album is, you know, I'd say it's ahead of its time, but it really does sound like 1966. It really does sound like Frank Zappa and the Mothers. This album, man, this incredible album, it does sound like the 60s, but it is ahead of its time, man. It's ahead of psychedelia. It's ahead of just funny, making fun of the 50s. You gotta hear that album from 1968, man. That 50s album every song is incredible, where they redo the song from this album. But you gotta hear the rest of all the Frank Zappa albums. I want you to go buy everything by Frank Zappa, whoever you are. If you're a little kid right now, you're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, it's never too early to get into Zappa. And any time of day is a perfect time for some Frank. Just eat some Franks and beans and ugh, that album from 1967, where Frank doesn't play, but he like directs it, he composes it. It's way ahead of 1967. Uncle Meat is amazing, and all the albums, the one with like Ray Liotta on the cover where he's shaving, is incredible. And right up to Chunga's Revenge, all of them, Peaches and Regalia, Hot Rats. Frank's a genius, you guys. This guy's beyond genius. He's way beyond genius. This guy's way beyond ahead of his time. The inventor of punk, the inventor of new wave, the inventor of grunge, the inventor of indie, the inventor of the underground. I love, the Electric Prunes and the underground, but Frank takes it to another level. He takes the Who Sell Out to a whole new level with We're Only in It for the Money in 1968. And Paul McCartney's going to sue it. I'm going to sue that cover. Frank doesn't care because Frank's a genius. Paul's like, I don't care. I'll get lawyers, man. I'll sue you, Frank Zappa. And Frank's like, I don't care, man. I'm a genius. Eccentric, definitely. Genius, maybe. Frank Zappa is a genius. And I want you to buy Frank Zappa. All of you. I don't care how young or old you are. Clark the Shark. At 1-800-449-8255 on the fabulous Clark the Shark Show from the fabulous golden EIB Sharkerphone. It's not a microphone. And this ain't Little Steven's underground garage. This is so much better. This is way, way more in tune because I live the music more than Little Steven, man. I wasn't playing Glory Days. I wasn't playing any of that crap in the 80s, man. I was doing tributes to Frank when I was just 21. Because I wanted to speed it up and sound weird. And just make funny, lame, shitty music like Frank Zappa. Because I loved Frank. He's like my dad. I love this man and all these guys and the Mothers. Every one of them, man. Frank Zappa and the Mothers, man. These guys are like the older brothers. The weird, twisted, they're just so fucking weird, all of them. They're such fucking weirdos. They couldn't hang out with me, and I couldn't hang out with these guys. They're too fucking weird. And Frank is too fucking genius for me. He'd just laugh at me and put me down and make fun of me because he'd be like, I'm so obvious. I'm just so basic to Frank. I might be a genius to all of you, but compared to Frank Zappa, oh, dude, I'm like a fucking, not even an ant in a picnic eating your fucking lunch out on the grass at a park. I'm just a hidden tiny little ant getting into a picnic basket. Like, oh, there goes Clark the Shark. He's eating a banana or your sandwich. You'll never be Frank. I'll never be Frank Zappa, man. This guy is a true genius. Inventor, creator, created melodies. He never rips off anything. He's always original. And this album, Freak Out, means the world to me, man. It means the world to everybody. And the Beatles created Revolver. Maybe before this album or the same time, but they had to take it to another level. And Paul's like, we had to go do Sgt. Pepper because it's our version of Freak Out. And it is, Paul. Paul's like, the White Album, where we're making fun of things, is a celebration of Frank. And it is, man. All those Beatles late period albums are a celebration of Frank Zappa and how he changed the Beatles. At 1-800-449-8255, the Clark the Shark Show. Paul McCartney tells it like it is. Frank Zappa changed the Beatles. Frank Zappa made Cream do Wheels of Fire. Frank Zappa made The Who do Tommy and The Who Sell Out. And The Who were worried, man. They had to do a great album in 1967. The Who Sell Out had to be great because Pete, all of them, Roger, John, they were worried. They had to be better than Frank. Everyone tried to be better than Frank, but you can't be better than Frank Zappa. Nobody can. This genius is the best, I swear to God. Frank Zappa, I want you to buy all his music at iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and support the estate and Moon Unit and Dweezil and all of them. That one fucking brother, oh, fuck that douchebag. Don't support him. I want you to support Dweezil and the other Zappas and Frank's wife and Frank, the estate. You know, with all the money will probably go to the one douchebag. I don't care. Eventually it'll flow to Dweezil, but I just want it to flow to Frank up in heaven. I hope the good Lord, he had to have given Frank a pass. I mean, Frank didn't believe in God. Frank couldn't believe in God, man. Frank was God. Frank Zappa was God. I swear to God, man, this guy was more to God. More than God to me, Clark the Shark. He couldn't, man. He fucking was God. Frank Zappa was a genius beyond God. Beyond him. This guy invented DNA, atoms, quarks, everything. Frank Zappa. Freak Out. The most amazing album. I don't think Frank ever did a better album than this. And this is just his debut, man. Of course he did. Of course Waka Jawaka and Hot Rats, oh, the Grand Wazoo, they're all better than this, man. But of course, he just got more and more genius as he went. Joe's Garage, oh man, all of it, man. That one album he did on Warner Brothers is incredible. It's all incredible with Frank Zappa. But I don't know, man. Freak Out might be the best. I mean, Uncle Meat, all of it, man. We're Only in It for the Money is so incredible. Frank Zappa, so incredible. And no matter how young you are, I tell you, man, you're never too young to get into Frank, man. If you're 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, or 18, 20, 25, get into Frank, man. Clark the Shark is commanding you. I'm telling you to get into Frank Zappa. First, listen to this album, Freak Out. Listen to the 50s one in 68. And listen to We're Only in It for the Money if you want to hear genius. But listen to Hot Rats, Peaches and Regalia, and listen to the Grand Wazoo. And all those albums in the 70s are so great, man. Waka Jawaka is so incredible. All of it, man. Chunga's Revenge, all of it. Frank Zappa, man. He's got like 200 albums, and I swear to God, they're all just as good as the next. They're all equal. Every Frank Zappa album is incredible. And you want to know what's scary and weird? In the vault right now in Laurel Canyon, there's probably Frank Zappa albums that are even more incredible than the ones you've heard that aren't even released. And I want Dweezil and his fucking lame brother to get those tapes and start getting out all those Frank Zappa albums. Because I bet you anything, man, inside the vault are probably 50 Frank Zappa albums. I'm not even kidding you, man, that are just as good as Freak Out or Hot Rats or the Grand Wazoo or any of it. This guy could do no wrong, man. You want to talk about technical difficulty, jazz fusion, unbelievable talent. It's Frank Zappa, man. He's beyond talent. He's inventive. He's creative. He's an originator. Origination, genius, inventive. He is the man. This man right here, Frank Zappa, man. You're never too young or too old to get into Frank. Start with Freak Out. Start with the 60s. But if you want to listen to Waka Jawaka, if you want to listen to all those 70s albums, you know, The Garage, where Frank's in blackface, listen to any album, man. How technical those guitars are, how technical the keyboards and the glockenspiel and the xylophone and marimbas, cellos, all these instruments, violins, all these instruments on Frank Zappa albums are just so technical. And the Black Pages are just full of notes, man. Even Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and all of them, they couldn't play it. They're like, we can't play Frank Zappa. He's so technical. He's such a genius. The page is black because there's so many notes. As Frank goes along, he gets so advanced. And he gets so incredible beyond this album. Every album improves. Every album gets better. But every album is great by Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa and the Mothers in the 60s, but then the New Mothers in the 70s with like Chester Thompson and all those guys. Ainsley Dunbar and all those incredible musicians. And this guy jams with Ginger Baker, man. This guy jams with Jack Bruce. This guy jams with them all, man. And all the guys in Cream and Eric Clapton, even they are like, you know, we're weird and we're crazy. But Frank, you can't even be in a bleeding room with Frank because he's, you know, he's so weird and he doesn't have a sense of humor. Frank didn't have a sense of humor, man. People who knew Frank knew that he was all business. Frank Zappa was all business, especially in the studio up in Laurel Canyon and in the vault. Every song mattered. Every note mattered to Frank Zappa. Every album had to be perfect. Every album is perfect. You listen to every Frank Zappa album, it's got to be funny, it's got to be ironic, it's got to be irreverent, it's got to be perfect. Frank nails it. All the drumming, all the bass, all the guitar, the cellos, the marimbas, the glockenspiel and violins and xylophones. Nobody has xylophone and uses xylophone on albums and songs like Frank Zappa. Nobody, man. And I don't think there's a finer Frank Zappa album than Freak Out, 1966. This incredible album that invented everything. It invented alternative. It invented punk. It invented indie, grunge, garage. Frank Zappa invented everything, man. You talk about the Music Machine and Sean Bonnewell, or you talk about the Electric Prunes, you talk about the Who Sell Out, but I think it was Frank Zappa, you know, because the Beatles were influenced by Frank Zappa. The Who were influenced by Frank Zappa. Everybody was influenced by Frank Zappa. Lou Reed was afraid of Frank Zappa. The Velvet Underground and Iggy Pop and David Bowie, they were scared shitless of this man because he was more of a genius than everybody, man. That guy right there, Frank Zappa and the Mothers. And this album, Freak Out, 1966. This is one of the greatest rock and roll albums ever recorded. And you just got the most accurate. You've got the only review of this album, I swear to God, that you will ever need. Don't listen to anyone else talk to you about Frank Zappa, except for Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255. That's right, I'm locked in now. And I'm concentrating. And I want to put a gravestone. I'm going to just go and put a gravestone on Frank Zappa, man, because I can't bear the thought that my hero, my idol, is in an unmarked grave. Hey, Dweezil and Moon Unit, you guys listen to me, man. Frank Zappa means a lot to me. And I don't want Frank Zappa in an unmarked grave. I don't think it's funny, man. I know it's ironic and funny, but I don't think it's funny that Frank is in an unmarked grave in Westwood or wherever he is in Los Angeles. I want you, Moon Unit, I want you to put a grave marker. I want you to put a gravestone on Frank Zappa. Dweezil, I know Frank doesn't want it. Wherever his spirit dwells in the universe, Frank's too funny and he's too ironic. He's too funny, man. He's too fucking funny, Frank Zappa. But the time has come to put a gravestone with a nice, beautiful marker at his grave right now in 2023. I want somebody watching this video, just go put a piece of paper down at that grave and say, here lies Frank Zappa. The greatest motherfucker that ever lived. The greatest genius. The most eccentric fucking weirdo. This fucking guy, man, who I love. He's not my dad. He's not my brother. He's not even my friend. Because he's too weird, man. This guy is too weird for me. He wouldn't even like me. He'd just think I'm a idiot retard. Because he's too genius for me, man. He's too special. He's too gifted. And compared to Frank, I am just an idiot, man. We all are. We're just basic, man. We're just basic run-of-the-mill douchebags compared to this genius Frank Zappa. We don't deserve this guy, man, and all that amazing music, all those amazing albums he did in the 70s. They're so technical and brilliant, beyond progressive rock. I mean, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and yes, they think they're technical. And The Who and Pete Townsend with Quadrophenia, he thinks he's so technical. You guys aren't technical, man. Led Zeppelin isn't technical. Pink Floyd isn't technical. None of you guys are technical, man, compared to Frank. Jeff Lynne isn't technical. You know, ELO, you're not technical. You're not Frank Zappa. Nobody is. At 1-800-449-8255, The Clark the Shark Show. There's tears running down my face right now when I think about Frank Zappa in an unmarked grave. That's wrong. That's not funny, Dweezil. Moon Unit, that's not funny. That's not ironic anymore. It was funny, and it was ironic for a while. But I'd like to think there is a God, and I'd like to think God gave Frank a pass. And I'd like to think that even God Almighty knows that Frank Zappa was too smart to believe in God. Man, I know there is a God. You know, God, you're so clever, and you stick us in a matrix, and we all suffer, and we all got to pass a test, and we all got to go through the Stanley Cup, and people get eliminated, and we all work hard to be number one so we can praise the glory of God. Oh, wow, that's so genius, isn't it, God? It's so great that, oh, we got to pray to God every day and worship the glory of God. Well, let me tell you right now, God, I worship the glory of Frank Zappa at 1-800-449-8255. Yeah, I love you, God and Christ or Jesus or the Holy Spirit, whatever your name is. But I love Frank Zappa almost just as much as I love God, because to me, Frank is God. And he shouldn't be in an unmarked grave, Dweezil. Hey, Moon Unit, this is Clark the Shark. This ain't Little Steven, man. This ain't the Underground Garage. This is the Clark the Shark Show at 1-800-449-8255 from the golden EIB Sharkraphone. Moon Unit, Dweezil, I'm talking to you guys right now. And you, that other douchebag brother, you know, you don't deserve to be the son of Frank Zappa, man. Dweezil should be the guy running the estate of Zappa, man. Or let Clark the Shark run it. You guys give it to me, and I'll run Frank's estate, man. Because all you guys do is fight over Frank. You guys are the children of Frank Zappa. You guys should have more respect and more dignity and more integrity, man. You guys should love each other. All of you, Moon Unit, Dweezil, man, douchebag brother, all of you should love each other in honor of Frank Zappa. This great man, this eccentric genius. I loved Frank, and I don't care if Frank thinks I'm a douchebag. I am a fucking douchebag. I don't care. But I still love Frank Zappa. At 1-800-449-8255, The Clark the Shark Show. I love this album, Freak Out. I love all his albums. And I want you guys to give Frank a tombstone with says Frank Zappa on it. Out there in Westwood or wherever Frank is fucking buried, man. I want there to be a marker, and I want people to be able to go and desecrate it, write shit at it, and write graffiti on it, like Jim Morrison. Because Frank Zappa's more than Jim Morrison. He's more than John Lennon. Everyone loved Frank Zappa. John Lennon loved Frank Zappa. Paul McCartney loved Frank Zappa. Everybody loved Frank Zappa. I don't care if they write on his grave or they turn it into a shrine or they make it into a bullshit institution or monument. Big deal. It should be, man. Frank Zappa's grave should be a place where we gather and we make fun of Frank, or we write graffiti on Frank, or we just sit there and pray and we worship Frank. But he should have a grave or a grave marker, Dweezil. Listen to me, Dweezil Zappa and Moon Unit. Before you guys die and leave this world, I know Frank's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm talking to you right now as Clark the Shark. I'm talking to you guys right now. Dweezil Zappa. Moon Unit Zappa. Moon Unit, you're beautiful. You're a beautiful creature. I love you, Moon Unit. And I love you too, Dweezil. And even the douchebag brother, man. Dude, fuck you, but I love you, bro. I love all of you Zappa kids. And I'm going to tell you right now, Frank needs a grave marker and a nice little tombstone that says Frank Zappa on it. Because I think, you know, Frank wanted to be funny and ironic, or he didn't believe in God, he didn't believe in anything. But I don't care, man, what Frank wants. Somewhere to me, Frank's spirit is telling me. He is talking to me in dreams when I sleep at night. Frank appears to me. And he says, yeah, Clark, tell them to give me a fucking marker. I was wrong. Tell Dweezil and Moon Unit to put a marker on my grave. You guys, I'm not kidding. I have dreams at night, and I see Frank Zappa coming to me through the Holy Spirit. and he tells me to put a grave marker at his grave. Don't you guys dare keep Frank Zappa in an unmarked grave any longer. Clark the Shark is telling you right now, you guys, please get a grave marker for Frank Zappa because he means so much to me. If you just do it for one person in the universe, do it for me, Clark the Shark, at 1-800-449-8255 in the Clark the Shark Show, the Little Sharky Underground Garage. Do it for me, man, from the golden EIB Sharkerphone. I want you guys to get a grave for Frank Zappa with his name on it and do a big cement grave, man. Even if you have to exhume Frank, he deserves a big-ass grave like Elvis Presley with a big cement thing, man, like a big porcelain or granite thing, man, so we can come right on it. So we can come desecrate it or write great things about this great man, Frank Zappa. Because he's one of the greatest men in rock and roll. Progressive, jazz fusion, jazz, technical blues. Everything's technical, man. Everything is technical with Frank Zappa. Freak Out, amazing first album. And you just heard the word, you just heard the testimony, and you just heard the most important information about Frank Zappa from really the only guy in the universe who knows Frank Zappa. Clark the Shark at 1-800-449-8255, the Clark the Shark Show. All 211 of this brilliant man. I've heard them all. I've heard all his albums, man. They're all, I swear to God, they're all perfect. They're all equal, and they're all genius. He's more than a guitar player, man. Frank's more than a composer. More than a genius. He deserves a grave, Dweezil and Moon Unit. Give Frank Zappa a grave that says Frank Zappa on it. You guys, come on, man. Even Harry Nilsson has a grave. Jim Morrison has a grave. I wish John Lennon had a grave. But, man, Frank Zappa, of all people, should have a grave with a stone that says Frank Zappa on it, man. Because I want to go there. And I want to write good things about Frank. Or I just want to put down a nice little, beautiful, some flowers and a little letter to Frank. And Frank's like, there is no God. I'm like, fuck off, Frank. There is a God. And I just proved it. Because I want you, Frank Zappa, to have a grave, bro. I want you to have a fucking grave, motherfucker. Frank Zappa and the Mothers. The greatest, man. I love them. You just heard the word from Clark the Shark about Freak Out, 1966. And I'm out. Peace, my brothers.